Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Abu Munir Ismail Davids, the CEO of National Zakah Foundation. Ahlan wa sahlan. Assalamu alaikum to all my fellow Muslims and all of those who tuned in tonight. Tonight we have two special guests and we have a very, very important subject that is becoming a major issue in the world today, and especially with the COVID-19, with so many families being at home and so much online in the last 9 months, 6 to 9 months. The online thing has just gone crazy. So tonight we're going to talk about social media and online gaming, the negative impact on children and their relationships. We have two esteemed speakers, Dean Mousad and Calisha Bennett. They're doing this particular subjects and this work under the Aware campaign, Aware Academy organization, where they provide, they go to schools and they provide online sessions and offline sessions as well to talk to people about this particular problem that we have. Can we call it a pandemic? No, we can't call it. Issues that we have, especially with our children. So for those who have children, and it affects children of all ages, and tonight we'll talk a little bit about different parts of this, and I'll be posing some questions to the two panelists. An example we'll be talking about, and I was in a conversation the other day, and the parents were talking about what is the right age to give somebody a phone or a tablet. What is the right age to allow them to use these things? And there's obviously difference of opinions amongst parents about the age and the personality of the children. Also, I've learned that a major issue is when the child is busy on their particular device, and they want to, you're calling them for salah, or you want them to come and eat, and you want them to put the device down. And I've seen it so many times where the children just ignore the parents. They're not actually paying any attention because they're so immersed in these games and whatever's keeping them busy on their device. So there's some science and psychology around, and there's some advice from different psychologists about what's the best way to take the phone, or to have some rules around this. And just recently we had a case to point that a mother called us and she needed some help with burial for her 11-year-old son, and he had died from following the blue whale competition or blue whale thing on the internet. So I'm not sure if you're aware of the blue whale. What do you call it? The blue whale challenge on the internet. It started from in Russia, and it basically gives you, I think it's 50 challenges that the kids or a person has to do. And it starts with very simple and easy things to do. And the last part of it is, the last challenge is to actually kill yourself, is to commit suicide. And that's what the 11-year-old boy did. And apparently there's over 200 to 300 children around the world that's already died from taking on this challenge. So this is a very challenging time to be a parent. I mean, each generation has their different challenges about what are the problems that we had. Our parents, our years was being home on time, playing out in the street, and we all look at it and say, we wish we had those challenges. But the challenges are, we can't hide that. We can't keep our children indoors forever. We can't pretend that the devices don't exist. We can't keep them away from devices forever. So let us get some advice from you guys to see how we can help ourselves and our family and our children with this. So, Brother Dean, would you like to introduce yourself and get it going?
Barakallahu Feek for that introduction. So my name is Dean Mousad. I'm a registered counsellor. I'm also the male New South Wales lead for the Aware Academy, alongside a few other, commitments that I play within the grassroots level in New South Wales and Australia. I guess in regards to what you mentioned, Brother Ismail, there's no one size shoe that fits all, right? So say, for example, from, my knowledge or my research, or things that I may adopt, I like to adopt more of a prevention is better than cure approach. So say for me, a recent father, I might say, for example, or strategies that I might put in place with my children may be that I don't want to give them devices at such a young age. I might give them call-only phones, or text-only phones, call and text-only phones. I won't keep their heads buried in the sand. So I'll be the one that will be teaching my children, I guess, the harms, the benefits of different things in life. And then with that guidance from myself, in their later years in their life, I'll give them the opportunity through discussion to really, talk and decide, if it's a good time for them to maybe engage in, owning their own, I guess, tablet or phone or TV. There would be some ground rules as a parent that I'd adopt, so even myself as a parent with my wife, we don't have, for example, any TVs in our own home. That's something that we've adopted. I guess when we first got married, there's no TVs in our home. And on top of that, in our bedrooms, there's no devices that enter the bedroom. So you can use your devices in the lounge room, you can use it in the kitchen, use it in a common area. But when it comes into the bedroom, for example, there would be no devices in there. And that way then, as a husband and wife, we're modeling the right strategies in what we want our children to do. Sometimes I hear from different conversations that I have with parents, but my son or my daughter, they're not listening to me. Why is it so hard for? And then, you look at their behaviors and their attitudes. It's like chalk and cheese. They want to do something themselves, but then when it comes to their kids, they want something different. So I think it's important from, I guess, a prophetic sense. We lead by example. Also in a secular sense, this also works, and it has the best outcomes, and Allah knows best. Sister Calisha.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Sister Calisha, and I'm a community educator and the female lead of the Aware Academy here in New South Wales. And we support with raising awareness and educating about online digital addictions. So I'm also the founder of Developing Diamonds and a parent of 5 children, alhamdulillah, varying in ages, including teenagers. So I guess I've got the hard and fast experience and insight of knowing what it's like in theory as to how you want to raise your kids and restrict your kids, and then the actual practical implementation of it and the challenges associated with that. So I'm coming from that background, inshallah, so I can add some different perspectives. When we look at social media in the world, they say that there's 3.48 billion users globally. So almost, a whole portion of the population are on social media, probably except for the extremely younger generations and then the older generations. There's they estimate 210 million addicted to social media. It's probably more than that. I'd say it's more than that. I'd say the average person is addicted in some way. Just ask yourself how many times you unlock and check your phone throughout the day, how often the thought to just touch your phone happens throughout the day. So likely a lot of us are addicted and don't even realize it. And that's very important, to just become aware of your use and try to keep tab of your use. Have one of those apps that that counts how much time usage and how many unlocks and that sort of thing is happening on your device, so that you can keep tab on it. So why am I starting with you? I'm starting with parents, because if you want to manage your kids' use of digital devices, then you need to be a conscious user of it yourself. Number one rule with kids: don't tell them to do something that you don't do yourself. Kids will call you out on it, especially once they reach their teenage years. They will not listen and be influenced by you if you are not practicing what you preach. So it's very important to model in front of the kids healthy use of your digital devices. When it comes to phone age, I don't know if we're getting into it now. We're going to get into it now, Brother Ismail, or is that going to kind of come up a bit later?
You continue if you want to flow there. It fits into your discussion.
Yeah, so let's flow into phone age. When is the best age to give your child a phone? The most generalized advice I can give is hold off for as long as you can. I'm not going to give you an age or a number. Each family is different, each parent is different, and each child is different. They will get to an age where they will fight you for it, like they will demand it, and they will not be happy if you don't give it. So I just tell all parents, prepare for that time and that age. For some kids, it might be younger. It depends on their will, their personality. You might have a child that doesn't even ask for it, or asks once when they're like 11, 12, and you say, nah, no way, that's not necessary. And then they never ask again until they're 20, and they're just not into it. And then you have other kids. You might, some families you see, they've got like 7, 8-year-olds. When can I get my own phone? And then they push daily, year after year, until the parents just buckle. So it is a battle of willpower. The best age is the latest age, the latest time that you can give it to them. And I understand Dean's approach of, you give them just a real basic phone. And I think, that will work for a while for some kids, and for some, it's still not going to be enough. They want the whole, the fitting in aspect. And this is what we have to realize. It's a machine. It's a beast out there in terms of social acceptance and that sense of belonging. For some kids, that's a really important need for them to feel like they are so-called part of the flock and part of their peer group. For some kids, they can cope with being different. For other kids, it actually destroys them. Like, they feel utterly destroyed that they don't fit in. And then you have to see and you have to witness, and you see it with families. For some kids, the denial of certain things that they want to, have, or certain privileges, the denial of it can actually cause severe psychological harm, severe spiritual Islamic damage to the child, and really unsettle them. So yes, there's a risk of them having it, and that it can damage them and it can morally impact them. But there's also, unfortunately, we're in these crazy times where kids are really psychologically sensitive. And for some kids, the harm of not giving it is greater than actually giving it and then moderating it and teaching them responsible use. So Sister Enza, my sister from Perth, she says, sadly, my children already have a phone to speak with their father overseas, and she says she hates it. Thank you, Enza, for sharing that. So yeah, I don't really know one parent that says, oh, I'm so glad, I'm so happy with my child's use of their phone. I've never heard anyone say that. Okay, it's a test, it's torturous, it's challenging, but inshallah we can tackle it just like we tackle many of the other fitan and tests and trials that are amongst us in these times.
I think you've made some good points there. I think it's very important that we normalize that conversation, in our houses, in our mosques, in schools, in different social settings. And that way then we can set the pace collectively as a community and as a unit into what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah, definitely. I think even that's why, bringing it up with families and even in this school environment, so that students feel supported if they don't have a smart device, that when you've got educators, coming in and saying, it's okay if you don't have it for a few years, here are some of the harms and the challenges, and you reassure young people like, yeah, okay, let me hold off a little bit longer. So for us, when we go into schools, we want to play that bridge, that middle person between parents and the teenagers, parents and the young people, to just kind of make it cool to hold off a little bit and make them aware of some of the risks and dangers with having these devices, that they're not as apparently cool as it's deemed to be, and show them some of the serious and, in ways, eye-opening dangers and risks.
Okay, so before we go into some of the risks of the phones itself and the things, I just, and you mentioned there that we need to lead by example. And a pet hate of mine is every Friday going for Jummah, and you see so many adults on their phones during Jummah. As a matter of fact, NZF, we created a whole marketing campaign during Ramadan around this, talking about the rules of Jummah. And even till today, when I was working in the city, you would during Jummah, you would see up to 10 brothers sitting there during the khutbah, playing on their phone, going to Facebook, touching it, going to WhatsApp, replying to it. One guy even answered his phone during the time. So there's not only a problem in the children. The problem is like across the age categories. And as you said, we have to lead by example as parents. So we can't say to the children, put that phone down. And we were watching a program the other day about the guys in it's called Social Experiment or something. The guys who created Google, Facebook, all of that, they're explaining, the guys who actually wrote the code behind it, explaining what they do and how they capture all the different things you do on your phone. By the way, just in case you didn't know, there's a new feature on the Apple iPhone that there's a yellow dot that comes up on the top of the phone. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, then if the yellow dot comes on while you're using your phone, it tells you that some app on your phone is using your camera.
Oh, wow.
Which is a good security thing within the Apple phone. So can we talk a little bit about the actual dangers that we have today and how the kids or the children or people or even adults are getting caught into the web? And I know in Google and all this space, they actually, you just search today about particular place, Jarvis Bay, and for the next 10 days, you'll get ads coming all the way about that. So they actually figure out exactly what you're doing. So talk to us about the dangers and what are the signs that your children are actually at risk, or what are some of the symptoms that you know your child's getting anxiety, stress from maybe the games they're playing or from something that happened to them on using their device?
Yeah, look, I think with anything there's dangers, and dangers with this, I know when we were kids, and even some of my students at one of the Islamic colleges where I teach out after hours, when I speak to the parents, they're like, "Oh, alhamdulillah, at least my kid's in front of my eyes. They're not out on the streets. They're not up to no trouble. They're in front of me playing PlayStation, Xbox, or they're on social media." So, we've seen in recent times, especially throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, different predators really amping up their efforts in connecting online with different younger generations that are on there that may not go to school, that are on Zoom. I know one of my friends, his son has been online learning in Melbourne for the last 7 weeks, 8 weeks. So now that schools maybe in Melbourne and in the earlier part of COVID-19 were on different platforms like this, you can have online predators that that take advantage of of our younger generations. Obviously, this is a big danger towards people that may have low self-esteem, low self-confidence. If they get some attention from somebody online, a predator online, they may engage with them over the span of many months or even longer, and then decide to take that first step in meeting them. And we have seen many syndicates, and predator circles that have been, taken down, that have been under investigation. So this is a real danger, to our youth, to our kids. I guess in terms of, what cues we can look for, behavioral cues. You can see maybe a sudden change in their behavior or mood swings. If they're used to attending family gatherings or attending groups with friends, a withdrawal from that. That could be a cue that them withdrawing from these particular gatherings and isolating themselves. That they have a problem with social media or gaming. Carelessness about personal grooming. I had one of my students, his brother was going to first year uni, used to go to the gym very regularly, many times a week. And then, over a span of maybe 6 to 12 months, slowly, he started increasing his gaming usage, and that stopped him from, going to the gym. He'd sleep at late hours of the night, wake up, early, late hours of the afternoon, wouldn't go to the gym, wouldn't go get a haircut, looked unkept, for many weeks. So this is, a problem, a loss of interest in the hobbies and sports and different activities, and even neglecting of responsibilities, So as the stat shows on the screen, the World Health Organization, they recognize gaming, as a mental health issue, gaming disorder. And this is a problem. It becomes a problem when, the youth, and not even youth, we've seen many married couples, in their 20s and 30s who have been getting counseling, who have been going through, different institutions in terms of reconciliation and mediation, where the wife will complain of her husband playing hours and hours and hours a week on games, that won't give her attention, that will, not engage with her or the family or the kids, and just spend hours and hours on games. So when it starts taking over, your day-to-day activities, when it starts, interfering with, uni, work, social settings and social gatherings, then you can, kind of identify that, there is a problem on your hands, and it needs some attention.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Dean. So I guess continuing on from that, some of the other dangers that we're seeing with regards to social media, apart from like what Brother Ismail mentioned, data collection, data is like the new currency now, things like cyberbullying, online predators, absolutely. When we look at social media use, what they find is the most commonly addicted bracket of the community of society are the young single females are the most addicted to social media. So parents need to be aware of that, and it can really take our young girls into a whole different world. A lot of parents have no idea who their daughter is online in comparison to the little good hijabi that they see at home. So it can create this split personality where the girl kind of lives out her fantasy in the online world in the secrecy of her different social media chats and chat rooms and whatnot, and the family is absolutely oblivious to it. So obviously that gets you kind of like a little bit nervous. When we look at challenges with the boys and the teenage boys, their danger online and on social media is of the sexual nature, pornography, and the image-based things that circulate that are pretty much free for all explicit imagery, which we would say as Muslims is pornographic, but they say it's beauty, it's art, it's freedom, so really at the tips of their fingers. So, and every time they see something which they find visually pleasurable, they are getting a kick out of it. So we have to remember that there is a neurological process happening in the brain where the dopamine is being released. They're feeling good when they're seeing these things, even if it is this glamorized hijabi sister doing makeup videos and stuff. There can still be a type of visual arousal from that, subhanAllah, let alone the extremely explicit forms of imagery that are online. So just be aware that these things are out there, and that's what's going on, and you might be using it to watch Mufti make videos. Is that my house? Emergency evacuation. Should I keep going?
Sounds like someone's cooking's gone wrong.
I'll go back to you, Dean. I'll come back when the sound stops.
Yeah, no problem at all. Brother Ismail.
Brother Khalil then mentions in the post there on Facebook, if you want to put up that comment there, Farouk, he's saying technology ever growing. There are ways you can give your kids phones. The parents need to not to be lazy and learn how to monitor the devices, and also not to be stingy when coming to buy the correct security platforms. So in your experience, this is a good point. Do we have is their security good enough, or are the kids smart enough to get around it?
Yeah, look, like they say, bro, when there's a will, there's a way, right? So there's always a way to get around things. I think it's important that, when we look at things, we look at it from a holistic, perspective. So the parents play a role, the children play a role, the school plays a role, families play a role, everybody plays a role. And so it's not good enough just to let us come on, into a school setting for a couple of hours and expect us, with a wave of a wand to solve the problem, or, to do a lecture or a workshop in a school or online and think, after 45 minutes that, okay, awesome, this is going to solve the problem. This isn't going to solve the problem. Inshallah, this is just going to normalize that conversation. And we hope, that us normalizing the conversation in different settings actually allows for bigger change. And like Sister Calisha mentioned, like you mentioned, Brother Ismail, it's time that we as parents, as educators, as teachers, as professionals start implementing the strategies ourselves. And it's not just with this, but this is with every facet in our life. We're expecting change, whether it's, in the Ummah, we're expecting change, in our personal lives or marital lives, whatever the case may be. The reality is, we have to start with ourselves. We have to look at within ourselves, be honest with ourselves, and really understanding that, if, that there's a problem. Because that's the golden rule. If you don't understand that there's a problem, there's not going to be a solution.
Can we go through a scenario just for a sec? So, an example, you have a 13-year-old daughter, and she wants a phone, and she needs to have a phone because she's going to a particular school. It's a bit far away. You need to be able to be in contact with her. And up to that point, she hasn't had a phone. She's been asking for a phone. Generally speaking, she's a good child and well-behaved and everything. So how do you address that now? What's the next steps now? What's the practical steps? And I'm sure a lot of parents are in this scenario.
Look, from where I sit, with the knowledge that I may have come across in my experience, once again, I may allow for a call-only phone. Looking at this context, looking at this situation, this call-only phone, text-only phone, a combination of both, will be utilized when she goes to school. So if the pretense is, look, while I go to school, coming back from, I need a phone just in case of an emergency, then during those hours, I'll accommodate for that what if, right? So there needs to be a level.
If she now persists, look, Dad, that's not cool, man. My friends are going to say, I don't have cool parents, and it's really not cool to all my friends have iPhones and stuff. And then, how do you manage that? So this is what happens every single day. And what do the parents have? Where can they go when they need help with this sort of things?
Sister Calisha, do you want to add some value to that?
Yeah, I'd say I'd advise families that the issue is you're getting solo parents who are kind of on their own saying no, and the vast majority are saying yes from very early on. So the vast majority are feeding the normalization of very young children having devices. So I want to blast, let's blast the parents, let's blast ourselves. Why are we giving it to them so early? It's not okay, especially 9, 10, 11, 12. I know some parents want their kid to be the cool kid.
But the horse is bolted. It's done.
Yeah, the horse is bolted, I know, but it doesn't mean, well, when it comes to you continuing to be able to say no, you've got to find other parents who are also saying no, so that there are other kids who also don't have, so that your child says, oh, they also don't have, and they also don't have, and that family doesn't let. We need to create a togetherness of of support. Like, you can't do it alone as a parent. And, the whole it takes a village to raise a child, it still rings true. We can't do it on our own. It's not, in an ideal world, of course, you tell your kids what to do, you control them, and they obey. That's an ideal world. It's not going to happen. You can't control these human beings with their own free will, subhanAllah. Some of them will have very strong will. Some of them will be inclined to want to fit in and rebel. We have to prepare ourselves for that. That's the reality. They're all different. So, when it comes to being strong in saying no or being able to deny them of it, you're going to need to have some kind of support, and you need to be able to teach them about the dangers. You need to have deep understanding about the health risks. Sit with your kids, do an active brainstorm. What's the benefits and what's the dangers? Let them see it on paper, what the benefits and the dangers are, and you tell them to count how many dangers, and there's too many. When they see that with their own eyes, how many dangers there are around having, a digital device or their own phone, then they understand, oh, that's why you're saying no. They need to see it. They need to hear it from other adults. They need to hear it from educators. They need to hear it at school. It's got to be supported. Brother Farouk says kids want them eventually. How do we ease them onto it while showing them how to use it safely? So you have to have, we'd always advise to have a contract. Have a contract that when you decide to give them their phone, whether they're 14, 16, whatever their age is, you have to have an agreement contract where there are clearly stipulated rules. And you can get these contracts, you can download them from culturereframed.org, I think it is, culturereframed.org. They have a phone contract. It's got all the rules and everything in there. You can add to it. It's a template. It's awesome, but you have to have an agreement with your child that they know that these rules must be followed. If they're broken, then the device is taken away. Problem is, we give it without instructions, without actual conversations about what they might accidentally even see or access on their phones. It's like it's like giving a child a knife and not telling them how to safely use it, or a weapon. It's a weapon. It's dangerous. Going back to the things that should I mention a few things I was going to mention before, Brother Ismail, about
just quickly before you go on with that? Yes, the contract. So obviously, once you sign a contract with your child, then you have to you have to abide by the rules. So if you say that if you do X, Y, Z, I'm going to take your phone, then you really have to act on that, because if you don't, then the contract is useless, right? So this is again where some strong parenting is needed by acting on that particular threat, so to speak, or punishment or penalty that's going to happen if you break the rules.
Yeah, parents need to
promise.
have a promise. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, continuous Calisha on.
Yeah, I think it's just important for us as parents. I know it's hard, but we have to have a backbone. We have to be strong and firm with our kids, and that soft inclination, haram, they're sad, they just want to be like their friends. Don't feed that narrative that to be worthy, you have to fit in and compromise your family values, your Islamic values. Don't teach them that they have to have the cool brand bag and the cool brand shoes and the Dora Explorer lunchbox. Don't feed the pull for everyone to have to fit in and conform.
All right. So what about the kids they've already got their phone? The parents already have a problem with them. So what can we do with that?
Yeah. So I'll mention some of the statistics when it comes to them. They've already got it. You're noticing now they're on it a lot. So you're like worried about addiction now. When it comes to teenagers in particular, teenagers who are spending at least 5 hours a day on their devices, they have twice as likely to have depressive symptoms than a teenager who uses less. So they're going to be twice as depressed. And average teenager today, it's a roller coaster of moods and emotions. If they're spending at least 5 hours a day, they're going to be twice as depressed, but the average teenager, they say, spends about 9 hours a day. 9 hours a day. So when you're seeing that they have a lot of, and if you ask the average teenager, compared to like when we grew up, the average teenager now has anxiety. And the flickering, images of swiping in the newsfeed, the constant income of messages and newsfeed, it escalates anxiety levels. It affects their neurology through all this overstimulation that's happening on social media. They'll dart from app to app to app on loop for hours and hours, subhanAllah. When we look at teenagers, if you go into schools, when I do go into schools, I look at the teenagers and you can see so many of them are yawning. So many
they sleep for 9 hours and on the phone for 9 hours. So what time do they have to?
They say 10% of teenagers check their phone at least 10 times in the night. They wake to check it 10 times in the night. Notifications, something, they don't want to miss out. The whole FOMO, fear of missing out thing. So, it's a real struggle, and addictive by nature. It's been designed that way so that we become even more mind-numbing consumers, really, on that conveyor belt, so they can continue with the data collection process. Just tapping us in. We're just plugged into this system. So they've already got it. You've got to make sure that you are moderating their use. So you have times. Blocks throughout the day, no digital devices between this time and that time for anyone, whatever the age, whether it's your meals time, your Maghrib Salah, your family time, sitting, chilling out together, everyone devices away for that 3 hours, just to bring some normalcy, some healthy stability, get them to feel okay having large windows of time where they're not on their device, so on and so forth. So you just have to pull them back out of it. But there will be resistance. There'll be they will say too, withdrawal syndrome. They'll say, I've got withdrawal. Like I feel like I'm withdrawing. They'll get agitated, angry, shaky. So be prepared for that as well, because they want that dopamine hit of looking at their notifications and the images and the messaging and all of that. It's really poisonous.
Even try that out as a parent, like if you as a parent, you as an adult, try that. You may be used to, being on your phone for many hours a day. I know Brother Ismail and myself probably on WhatsApp organizing different, teams and organizations, to do 1, 2, 3. Let's try, for a week to, bring down those hours, bring down the unlocks of our phone, bring down, the consumption on the different social media platforms in the name of, and, my wife will get me out on this, in doing khair, right? Doing dawah, which, I'm guilty of it. Like, if we want to be honest, we be honest with ourselves. Even now I'm meant to be on a family holiday in Canberra. And my wife was like, we're meant to be on a holiday there. What's going on? It's like, I'm doing dawah.
We need to do a contract with you, Dean. Holiday contract. I'm gonna send her the template. That's it.
I'm finished.
So there's a question there from Sarah J, which is something that I mentioned earlier, and that's exactly, I've seen this so many times, and this is where it comes to. I was reading an article about the psychology of how to take the phone from a child, without just grabbing it from them or grabbing it, pulling it out of their hand, because that's the worst thing you do, because they're just going to scream. So, like, I think it's like when a toddler has a toy or something, or they have something that's maybe dangerous, and you want to get it out of their hand without them harming themselves anymore, then you basically use some different techniques to do that, by distracting them or doing them or offering them something else. So have you come across like good advice or good papers on that?
Yeah, look, I think there was an article I read about the difference between bribing and the difference between rewarding. So say, for example, if you take a kid, your child out to Woolies, for example, if you tell them before they go to Woolworths, if you're good at the end of Woolworths, at the end of the trip, I will give you a reward. Then this is different to the kid acting up in Woolworths and then you're giving them something to shut them up, right? So I think, during that particular incident, it may not be the best thing to, pluck the phone away or pluck their device away after you've received a piece of knowledge. Let them, continue playing with it for that, for that duration of time. And then, be proactive and say, okay, from tomorrow onwards, let's have a discussion first. I've come across some information, some knowledge. Sit down your child, let them have a read of it, get their ideas, their thoughts, their opinions on the matter, and tell them, look, let's both of us, for example, work on a no technology hour, for example, where, when we sit down, we eat together, there's no technology for that hour, or there's no devices in our bedrooms, and slowly wean yourself and your child off, the devices, as opposed to just ripping it out of their hands. They're not going to know what they've done wrong. Obviously, they're going to go into that screaming and tantrum mode because it's been okay for many years before. Why'd you take it off me? So I think it's just about how we navigate through it that really sets the tone and how our children will respond.
Yeah, definitely agree. When it comes to giving it to them in the first place, remember age appropriateness. Remember how long, you should already know how long they should or shouldn't be on a device. Of course, trying to abstain altogether if they're very young, but there's certain ages, that it's a certain amount. Any excess on that is detrimental to the child's development. So you should already know as the parent how long they're allowed to go on it. So if they're allowed to go on for 20 minutes a day, you have to set that and you tell them you get 20 minutes. Even if the child doesn't understand what 20 minutes is, they know 20 minutes is my limit. They know already, and they're hearing from you that they have to use things with limits. And then when the time is coming to an end, you tell them 5 minutes left. In a few minutes, I'm going to take it off you. Finish up your game. So they're already neurologically, emotionally, they're just like, okay, mom's going to take it in a minute, instead of just enough now and you snatch it and then they have a tantrum. So make sure they have the warning times. regarding the tantrum, I'm sorry if they tantrum, and you've tried your best to avoid it, but they still tantrum anyway. Alhamdulillah, that's what children will do, especially young ones. But rather deal with the tantrum now than a tantrum when they're 18 and they're kicking and stomping and screaming because you've decided to take the phone off them, and then they're like throwing stuff around your house and having an absolute berserk young adult tantrum, because it will end up as that if you don't deal with it from when they're young. If they're having a tantrum, what are you supposed to do? You have to soothe them. Don't get more angry. Don't get aggressive. Just hold the child. Pull the child close to you. Hold them and tell them, yeah, maybe you can play again tomorrow. Don't worry. Let's go do something else now. But they need soothing. A tantrum requires soothing and neutralization of, the overload of their emotion in that moment. They're struggling to regulate. Digital devices affect their regulation even more. We as adults struggle to regulate ourselves as well. So we're like big toddlers as well. So soothe yourself first, maybe, and then work on soothing them. So yeah, that would be my advice in that.
So the one person is mentioning on Facebook there that, which is true, a lot of the children now have to study using iPads. Right, so they're always on their digital. And I'm studying, and I remember, I hope my younger brother's not watching. Nowadays there was no digital, so we was pretending to study. But in those days there were these comic magazines, like magazines that had stories like the Batman, all of that. So often we would have the comic magazines underneath our books, and when mom and dad's looking, we're busy studying away. But as soon as they turn it, we would be reading the magazine. So similar thing would happen today when kids are on particular apps. And I remember just a while back, somebody was talking about they have their own language, right? On to show, oh, mom's standing over me, or when they're on the phone, then they'll send a message to say, mom's standing over, which means don't say some things because somebody is watching, etc. So I guess there's a lot of challenges for the parents there. And so how do you deal with those that saying I'm studying on the pad without standing over them and watching every single move they do? Because that breaks trust as well, isn't it? You have to give them some level of trust. What's your advice on that? The use of the iPad, especially needed.
Look, I think we like to justify a lot. So you'll always see in the different workshops that we'll do, oh, how about this? How about that? What about this? What about that? We as adults, we're adults, alhamdulillah, and we're adults for a reason. We should be able to provide alternatives, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, whenever, there would be something that he'd say, let's not do, right? There'll be an alternative given. So for us as Muslims, we should also give an alternative, right? So we give alternative to our kids. So say, for example, the child tells you, listen, I need to study. Okay, no problem. Let's study in the common room. Use your iPad in the common room. Okay, how long do you need to study? I think I need 3 hours to study, for example. I'll give you 3.5, 4 hours to study. Once you finish studying, if you finished, inshallah, and you get good marks, I might give you, X, Y, Z as a reward. So I shouldn't be singing to my child's tune. Why am I now the child and my child is the parent? And we see this a lot. We see with those tantrums, which, by the way, this is one of the signs of the Day of Judgment. How the parent becomes the servant of its master, or the master of its servant. So essentially the mother, the father becomes the servant of its child. The child dictates and yells out orders, and we are expected to listen, or we'll look like a bad parent if our child has a tantrum in public. No, we need to once again. We need to toe the line. This is, the rules, and this is how they need to be adhered to. And, that's where your skills, interpersonal skills come in, negotiation, you compromise, right? You have those discussions with your child, and it will be met with resistance in the beginning, especially if they were used to, something, level of freedom for a period of time. You've been enlightened with some knowledge now. But once again, with those kids that may have, those devices, they're in their teens, you have that discussion with them. Let's sit down together, like Sister Calisha mentioned. Let's brainstorm. Let's do some research. What are the pros? What are the cons? And then from there, let's put a strategy. Let's put a plan in place to minimize. And this is what it is. It's a harm minimization approach. It's an approach used by the government, and this is an approach that we should use as well. How do I minimize the harm and slowly, get rid of it completely?
So the advice would be, like, I know that most parents would, at some point in their life with the children, there would be time that the children would want something, or like, school holidays is coming up, or particular events coming up, and then the children need something big, like it could be an expensive clothes or whatever it is. Should the parents then say, okay, listening to us tonight, say, okay, I'm going to take this document and I'm going to wait for an opportunity to say, okay, we're going to the negotiation table now, right? And we're going to sit down, okay, in order for us to discuss, or that thing you want, or that particular event you want to go to, or whatever you want to do, let's come to the table and discuss the digital rules in this house. Is that a good approach?
So I'll, I guess, go into that, inshallah, with regards to, how they're using their devices, and they will always say to you it's for school, because they'll get it off you because they're saying it's for school. And majority of the time it's not for school. They're browsing, they're watching things, they're on YouTube. They could be literally across the dining table from you watching pornography and you wouldn't know, and your daughter Fatima is chatting to Abdullah and sending inappropriate messages to him right in front of you across the table. So that's what it will get to. That's what we have to be aware of when we're looking at the motivations behind wanting to be diligent. It's not just because there's a small risk of some small harm. This is some serious stuff, subhanAllah. There's some immorality and lewdness that has now, permeated all of society, in our own homes, our own children. Dean and I work with pornography addicts and people who have been, exposed to pornography and struggling with it. We talk to young Muslim kids, 8, 9-year-olds, small, and they've seen pornography, explicit hardcore pornography, accidentally because they're on a device. So don't, say, oh, but they have tantrums, so I just give it to them. It's, it doesn't work like that. A key factor that we have to...
Calisha, just before you go, so are there not any software or security applications that we all need to put on the phones for the children?
Yeah, every home should get a modem called Family Zone. So look up familyzone.com.au or .org.au. They have a modem which is built and controlled directly from your phone, where you can see everyone's connection, you can cut any connection, and you can see everyone's browsing history and all of that. When they know you've got that, they're going to think twice based on what they want to go and look at.
But wouldn't they just go outside and use the 3G outside?
I don't know, just potentially if they have their own phone with their own access, then you could have an issue. But yeah, when it comes to the Wi-Fi access within your home,
are there applications that you can put on the phone? So you're giving your daughter or son a phone, and on that phone there's an app on there that protects it. Do they have that?
Yeah, there is apps out there. Depending on if you have an Android or an Apple, you've got Family Zone, Q Studio, you've got Family Link. These are different apps, software systems that can be implemented on your phones to give you that access. Keeping in mind, this is one strategy amongst many strategies. So you have to have a toolbox with many different tools in there. And this is the approach we need to take, because once again, like we discussed before, when there's a will, there's a way. Okay, you know what? You've put this Family Zone in my house. I'll just go buy myself another phone. So you can't rely on one tool.
Yep.
To solve the problem. You've got to have many tools to solve this problem.
Yeah, you can police it as much as you want and become like a tech security expert. But if your child wants to access what they want to access, they're going to find a way. They will find the money, they will find the resources, they'll get their own little secret device, they will find loopholes, have all the apps and whatnot you want. They'll just go into YouTube. You can see explicit stuff easily on YouTube as well. So it's like, how are you going to police it constantly? The key, an important key is the conversations, the pre-exposure conversations you have with your kids from very young. influencing them from very small about how we use devices and what we've got to watch out for when we're on our laptops and our phones. And, you know, we don't need to have chats and this and that. My kids, you know, sometimes they'll say, oh, my friends in my class, they have TikTok, and oh, the boys in my class, they play Fortnite and they do this and they do that. And you, from then you tell them, yeah, we don't want to have those things, or we don't do those things in our family. Why? And you explain why. These pre-conversations, not after the fact conversations, damage control conversations, they're much less effective. Aside from that, what's known and what, you know, a lot of experts are saying with regards to addictions of any kind, they say the key to, you know, the key to curing an addiction is connection. If you don't want your kids to be so needy of the connection, communication, the belonging, the gaming, all of that with others, because that's ultimately what it is. They're finding ways to just connect with others in the world to feel like they matter. If you make them feel like they matter because you are so bonded and connected to them within your family, within your parent-child relationship, they're going to have a whole lot less need for wanting to get that external validation. So when parents are saying, what do we do? What do we do? It's like, love your kid, be there with them, talk to them, spend time with them, be fun, be happy. They're doing their homework. Don't go off to your room or your TV show. Sit next to them and do your work or studies while they're doing their homework next to you. Just the companionship, the company. So they're not there studying. They feel alone. So then they go on their device to like chat to someone while they're supposed to be studying. So human factor. Let's go back to being connected human beings again. You know, and remember the cure to addiction is connection. And
This is
yeah. There's a sorry.
Sorry, mate. Continue.
I'll just finish off. There's a quote by Robin Sharma in his book. He says, "The addiction to distraction is the death of your creative, your creative expression, like your creative construction. Being addicted to being distracted. We're all addicted to being distracted, and so are our young people. So you know, it's really something that we have to realize. There's an addiction to just tapping out or not being focused and not being connected. And we've got to go back to focus and connection in order to combat that. Go, Dean. Sorry.
So before you go, Dean, there's a lot of parents in with maybe 2 to 3 young ones, and you see that all the time. The kids are they just want to keep them quiet. So they use, even when they're eating and stuff, they use to watch a movie or watch things on the iPad or the phone, so they can quiet and while everybody's eating, just have some peace and quiet. So is that where the problem starts? Because from a very young age, they were busy watching something while they were eating.
Yeah, look, there's many different reasons I believe that, this could be the problem. This could be an instance in a particular household, where when it came to, dinner time, everyone was on their own devices watching something, and so it becomes a habit as they grow up, them thinking it was normal. This is and can be a problem. And the same as, in the other scenario, like Sister Calisha mentioned before, in regards to the connection, the human connection, that's paramount. And I've seen this a lot, and you would have seen this a lot as well in NZF. You'll get thrown, a caseload, you get thrown a client. For me, in the grassroots work that we do, please take my child and take him with you on the Saturday night program and solve all their problems and issues. Habib, I'm with your son for 2-3 hours. You've got another 166 hours in the week that you got to deal with them. You can't outsource connection. And I think one of the stats, one of the quotes that's on Facebook that we've probably seen a lot, in a world where we're so connected, we're disconnected. So we're connected like never before, in the 21st century, but we are very disconnected. And when you sit down, you get to the crux of, someone's emotions, you'll feel like, they may not feel that they're loved at home. Their spouse may not love them. Their parents may not love them. For us, we may have had parents growing up that, worked very hard. Both parents worked dual income, to put us in the best of education and the best of schools. And that was the parents' version at the time in, giving their children the very best. when they didn't have an education, when they didn't have the coolest gadgets in town, they, put themselves out, to give their version of love to their kids. But, you ask the kids, they might be grateful in a way and ungrateful in a way. They're like, well, that's not what we want. We don't want the newest device. We want, our parents' attention. And that's very important.
So, Dean and Calisha, I know that you guys are set up some seminars and stuff that you're doing at schools, and you're starting you're going to do a few sessions at the Malik Fahd School, and you're trying to talk to other schools as well. Can you briefly explain to us what you cover off at the school sessions, and so people, some of the parents who's listening tonight can prompt their schools to have this session, because I think it's important. It's one extra armor for them.
Yeah, definitely. So look, like you mentioned, normalizing the conversation is what we want to do. Alhamdulillah, whether it's on social media, or in different institutions, we've tried to normalize the conversation. We obviously know that, the kids are in schools for, a bulk of their time. And so we have, we've developed a program, a small 1.5 to 2 hour interactive and engaging workshop covering different topics, tailored to high school students. So predominantly this is tailored for Year 7 to Year 12 students. These workshops, at the end of it, they'll get a certificate of attendance, and we'll cover topics, where we might be talking about gaming addiction. We'll talk about internet addiction, social media addiction. Depending on the school, depending on the students, we can tailor make these workshops to touch upon certain topics more than others, less than others if they want. So if anybody listening today is an educator, is a teacher, is a parent, speak to your local school, speak to your independent school. Sister Calisha and I, we run these workshops, inshallah. Sister Calisha for the females, and myself for the males. Speaking on my behalf, I'll be coming from a position as a registered counsellor, and talking about it from the research, the first-hand experience that I've got with clients that I see outside of schools. Sister Calisha, as a coach, as an educator, has also a plethora of experience. And so, inshallah, we're looking to really tap into the schools in term 4 and in 2021 and beyond. So feel free to reach out to us on our individual platforms, whether it's Dean Mousad or my name or Sister Calisha Bennett, and we'll be more than happy to run these workshops at your schools.
Do you have anything that you do for parents?
Yeah, so we've also got a workshop for parents and for educators and teachers. Similar workshop, 1.5 to 2 hours, where we can offer it to teachers and parents in school settings or outside of the school setting. I know we've done a few of these workshops already at mosques, Twins of Faith. I've done a couple of these, and a few other institutions I've delivered a few of these workshops to, as well as Sister Calisha, I'm sure. So we can tailor make more or less any kind of workshop depending on the needs that you see from your demographic.
Do you provide a service where you can go into homes and arbitrate with parents and children?
This is not my skill set at the moment.
There's a good business opportunity, guys.
Yeah, we do. We're getting an increasing demand. Personally, myself, I'm getting increasing demands for coaching our parents through their issues and struggles with their kids, as well as their talking to the kids themselves as well. Kids really struggle, and it helps for them to have an adult support that's non-judgmental, with no expectations, and they're able to just talk about what it is that they're not feeling heard or understood in, and then for parents to just be calmed down a little bit so that they can actually hear their child and connect. And again, it's coming back to that, the key is connection with your child, coming back to grassroots human being, heart to heart, soulful, soft-hearted, merciful connection with our children. That's the cure, the remedy, and the prevention for the beast that is the digital world. This is what makes healthy kids, healthy connections with their caregivers.
Alhamdulillah. So it's always been an hour. So just we'll finish up with some final words from both of you. Brother Dean, what's your
look,
final advice to people?
Look, so like we mentioned before, it's important to understand, that there's a problem. Because if we don't understand there's a problem, there won't be a solution. So we can talk about it day and night, and if the family members, the schools, the teachers, the educators, whoever else doesn't believe it's a problem, then there won't be a solution. And if you do have a problem in your family, say a family member, a friend that's addicted, that's struggling, they have to acknowledge that there's a problem and want the solution. If you try and force that on them, the chances are they're not going to last. They might see you once because there's a crisis, they might go through a divorce, they might, be addicted to other substances, and this might cause big problems, in that particular setting or space. But then after that crisis has fizzled out or settled down, you won't see them again. So I think discussion is important. Normalizing that conversation is important, and I think it's important that we really, as parents, as humans, as adults, really start, critiquing and asking questions, looking at our lifestyles, and really starting with ourselves. And if we can start with ourselves, if we can change 1% a month, if you can change 1% a month, in a year, that's 12%. Now, if you were to put your money in a return, I'm sure, Ismail, you're a man of returns, right? 12% a year is a good return, mate. So work on yourself, 1% a month, and you'll be fine, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. Sister Calisha?
Yeah.
Final words?
I'd echo that, in terms of if you want to change, your condition, you have to start with yourself. If you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to change the condition of what's going on in your home, in your family, you have to start with yourself, and you have to take a good hard look at yourself and what's missing, what's going wrong, what's dysfunctional within you and within your relationships with your kids, what's fractured where they don't take you as an influence and they don't take your word and your advice, your nasiha, as weighty. Where have you gone wrong? And if you can win them back, win their hearts back, then you start to win the weight of your word when you ask them and you tell them to do something or not do something. So again, it's like reclaiming not just authority, but like respect. We shouldn't be authoritarian, demanding types of parents when our kids, especially as they're getting older. You want them to obey out of their love for you, their respect for you, their trust in you that you want the best for them. And we have the challenge of literally fighting everything else out there in the world, which is trying to coil its tentacles around our children and pull them into the dunya and into the corruption of this world that we're in, the Dajjalic kind of culture, monoculture that we have globally. And the only way to keep your children close to you in influence and in to preserve their fitrah as much as you can is through that soulful heart-to-heart bond and connection with your kids. If you're struggling, if you're stuck, reach out for help. Go to counseling as an individual parent who's like, I'm a mess, or I'm not using correct strategies, or I feel so angry and I don't know how to communicate. Get help yourself. If you feel like as a family unit you need help, seek that as well. There's, alhamdulillah, amazing resources within our community now. So many counselors and psychologists and coaches and ways to get support. You don't have to do it on your own. The support is out there. You just have to reach out and make an intention to change and improve for the better. And I'm not saying this in theory. I've had to go through my own very, very painful, challenging journey, in raising, kids who are in their teenagers. Some of them were easy and some have been a massive challenge. So I've been through the painstaking throes of it and had to learn a lot of things the hard way. So now I try to give parents suggestions and strategies actually based on things that I did wrong. And that knowing and learning the hard way that a different approach has to be taken, and that different approach, the loving approach, the softer approach, the connected approach, is ultimately the approach that will trump and succeed, inshallah ta'ala, by Allah's permission.
Jazakallah khairan. So in summary, just quickly, what I've taken mostly from this is that there's more work for the parent here rather than the children. And we basically, as parents, we need to take stock of how we are parenting, and really put some effort if we wanted to say, like, I'm going to make an investment in anything, and I'm really concerned about my children, and I'm worried about this digital age, I'm worried about all the bad things that's out there, then I really need to invest in how I'm parenting my children. And then the second one is basically try and build a relationship of trust and open conversation with your children, and then that will build confidence with them. And at the same time, we don't, many of these things, almost all of these things, already there in our religion, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us, as the advice on how to be a parent, how to raise children. So we don't really have to go and look very far for answers. We're not saying it's easy. I'm glad I don't have children that age where I have to worry about the digital stuff. So Jazakallah khairan to both of you for a very, very informative talk tonight. And people can reach out to us or to you if they want to know more about that. And to all of those who tuned in tonight, we hope it was beneficial for you and you've learned something. And we make dua for all of our parents and children out there, that Allah protects us and keeps us on the right path. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.